As the wind howls and the world turns, winds blow across the world. Wind is caused by a difference in temperature, which causes air to rise and fall. Hot air rises, and cold air sinks. This temperature gradient is affected by the amount of solar energy, or lack thereof, reaching Earth. As solar energy reaches the equator, it heats up the air, causing it to rise. As the air mass rises, it spreads. As it spreads, the air moves away from the equator. Thus, it cools and then falls. This movement of air causes a second cell of air to also form, interacting between the air at the equator and the air at the poles. This segment of air falls with the air mass from the equator. It then continues to spread where it encounters air rising from the poles. It then rises, repeating the cycle. The final segment of air begins cold at the poles, and then it moves toward the equator. As it does so, it gets warmer and rises. It then spreads, heading back to the poles, where it gets cold again, and repeats the cycle. All of these segments of air work together to produce weather patterns that we see across the globe. This process occurs in both the northern and southern hemispheres, and is mirrored in both hemispheres. The cycle ultimately begins by solar energy directly hitting the equator, where it heats up the air found there. As the air spreads, it sends the energy toward the poles. The rises and falls of the air occur in each segment, but the overall movement of energy is from the equator toward the poles. Each segment is necessary for weather patterns around the Earth. Temperatures may vary drastically from place to place, but places across the world are connected by wind patterns. Volcanic eruptions can spread ash thousands of miles away, carried on the backs of these systems. Life on Earth is aided by these patterns, and we are all connected in some small way by the wind. Whether a mighty gale or a gentle breeze is blowing, that movement of air is the result of grand processes that began at the equator and that spread all the way to the poles. This movement constantly occurs, cycling through each segment, uniting us across the world in the wind.